Hi, I'm Jennifer Potter, Executive Director of Be Well Texas. Too many people are struggling alone these days, and alcohol and drug deaths are increasing. We started Be Well Texas to offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere, even at home. We provide compassionate, caring support virtually or in person. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment if you don't have insurance. Really. Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here.
I want to talk about something that's been really exciting around here, and that is our partnership with our friends at Ford. Ford Motor Company and your North Texas Ford, or your Texas Ford dealers have announced an expanded sponsorship of the UIL State Championships, solidifying Ford as the official automotive sponsor of the UIL. As part of the new commitment, Ford will now support all UIL extracurricular activities, including athletic, academic, and music state championship competitions. In addition to the sponsorship, Ford is celebrating the 20th anniversary of the prestigious Built Ford Tough Player of the Week Award and Player of the Year Award. This campaign has become one of the most celebrated in Texas high school sports, recognizing standout athletes, student athletes, for their on-field performance, leadership, and commitment to excellence. Ford will honor some of the most decorated players who have received the award over the years, with a special focus being on their achievements both in high school and beyond. Guys like Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, all former Built Ford Tough Players of the Year, and we're partnering with them to amplify that. Dave Campbell's Texas Football, we're going to be amplifying the celebration through our partnership through all of our different platforms, so Texan Live, as well as here on this program and over the course of our social media as well, and TexasFootball.com. We're really, really excited to be partnering with Ford to help celebrate all of the things in Texas high school sports across the landscape. So more to come on that. There's more information on TexasFootball.com, but we're so thrilled to announce that partnership in Texas and the Texas Ford Dealers' expanded partnership as the official automotive sponsor of partner of the UIL State Championships. We certainly are very, very excited about the future there.
Three, two, one. Hello and welcome in to the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Yates, joined by Dave Campbell's senior college writer, Mike Craven. And we are doing a Texas State-centric podcast because big news out of San Marcos last week is the Texas State Bobcats are joining the Pac12 for July 2026. We're going to have President Kelly Damphousse and Athletic Director Don Coryell on the show coming up in the back half. But first, I want to give some context for that talk we just had with them, Craven, and discuss Texas State going to the Pac-12. I know this has been rumored for quite some time. You were on the original porting back in the fall when they were flirting with it. They originally declined the Pac-12's overtures. Well, now they have accepted. Why now, Craven? Why the Pac-12? Why now?
Well, I think a lot of reasons, and a few that Don and Kelly talk about here in the interview. But it's about brand recognition, right? Like being a national brand, growing your brand beyond Texas. And when Damphousse was hired, that was one of the things that they wanted him to do. And one of the ways you do that is with athletics. And so I think with the renewed interest in the Pac-12 and the way they've held stuff together and added some teams, and now they have name brand squads like Boise State, Oregon State, Washington State. I think it was just an opportunity for Texas State to be with brands that are bigger than them right now and to grow into that and to have a bucket to where they can grow into and become that type of brand. They get to be the only Texas school in the Pac-12. I think that they would say it's the fifth best conference in the country football wise. I think the American could probably argue with that. The Sun Belt's a really fun conference. It's a really regional. It's kind of a throwback conference where the programs care and they fill up their stadiums. But this is going to be more money. It's going to be more recognition. I think it's going to lead to more applications, all the things that universities care about.
More money obviously comes from the television deal. And the Pac-12 originally fell apart because George Kliavkoff could not get a television deal, or at least one to the liking of the original schools. That's why you've seen the mass exodus from Washington, Oregon, USC, schools like of that nature. Now, it's been a miraculous act by the Pac-12 to come back from the dead, quite literally. And Texas State, being the 8th member, officially cements that, because they needed an 8th member to actually have a full conference schedule. But this is going to be a lot of travel for Texas State. You mentioned they were in a regional conference in the Sun Belt. They are now going to be traveling all West Coast, hopping time zones. Does that TV deal, you think, make up for that extra money spent in travel?
We'll see what the share is. If it's close or is a full share, then yes. They were getting about $2 million per year in the Sun Belt. If this is an $8, $9, $10 million cash, even if it's a $7 million cash in, that's 3 times the money. Say you're spending an extra $1.5 million on travel, and you're still coming off with $3.5, $4 million extra. And in the rev share world that we're entering into on July 1st, all of that counts. That's players, right? That's a quarterback. That's a couple linebackers. That's the ability to keep GJ Kinney when some other coaches or when other schools come calling, if they do come calling. So I think it was a great move for them. And the reason it needed to happen so fast was it raised from $5 million buyout to $10 million buyout from the Sun Belt after July 1st. If you owe $10 million, now that starts to eat into that capital. Now with the extra travel, are you making any extra money? By only having a $5 million buyout, I think that really helped them. And it's why you saw, Tulane, Memphis, and maybe even a UTSA kind of stay in the American. Their buyout's like $24 million, and they don't have that kind of money to write that check. Texas State was able to write that $5 million check, knowing that so much more money is coming out on the back end. And that's just from TV deal. Remember, at like Texas, I think most of your money is coming from your television deal. At places like Texas State, still a lot of it's from the gate. A lot of it's still from just people coming to games. And this is like, no offense to any of those schools in the Sun Belt, but you're going to sell more tickets to Boise State and Oregon State and Washington State than you are to Troy, Louisiana Monroe, and even to James Madison. And then I think lastly, on the travel point, a lot of those schools in the Sun Belt are hard to get to, right? Like it's further to go to San Diego State, but that's easier. It's further to go to Colorado State, but that's easier, right? You're not going to have to
San Diego airports,
right? Like there's major airports. There's not like 3-hour bus rides after you get off the plane. There's a couple. Washington State's notoriously hard to get to, but I do think the ease in travel will be good, and then just those name brands coming to San Marcos will help them sell some tickets and get some booster money that offsets any of that travel cost.
Now, both Kelly and Don said in the interview that you're going to hear coming up, like, we believe this is the 5th best conference. And I didn't ask them, honestly, because I got too scared to ask them. So I'll ask you, do you think this could be a Power 5 deal, return of the Power 5, or are we in G6 territory forever?
I think we're in G6 territory, but I think that they can be the halfway house in between.
Okay.
Right, where they are year in and year out producing that G5 playoff spot. Boise State obviously has already done that and is considered one of the best G5 programs in the country. Washington State and Oregon State still have the Power 4 stench on them, right? Like they're still Power 4 by proxy. And so it gives you 3 heavy hitters with huge national reputations to go up against. And if you start beating those teams and you start winning that conference, I think you're right there with the winner of the American on to get that G5. And then you look at basketball with Gonzaga being in it. There's just a lot of benefits to this. It's just simply a better conference than the one they're leaving on the field, on the court, and in the boardroom. And I think those 3 things align to make this a no-brainer for the Bobcats.
So you had a column come out right after the news broke about how Texas State got themselves in a position to make this jump to the Pac-12. Can you kind of give the nutshell of that story on the website right now, texasfootball.com? Like, describe the job that Kelly Damphousse and Don Coryell have done to make this feasible.
I don't think you can understand how much of a change of leadership has improved Texas State's outlook unless you covered the sport or covered the team before it happened, or you went to the school before it happened. It was in disarray. Like, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say like they just didn't have any buoyancy. There was no leadership behind the scenes. Everybody was splintered in their vision and what to do. And what always stood out to me about Texas State is they did just enough to become Division I, to move to the FBS, to be a WAC member, and then a Sun Belt member. But then they kind of stopped investing after that. I'm pretty close with Spavital, who was their previous head coach before GJ Kinney, and just he had to buy jugs machines. They weren't getting full meals, right? Like even early on in the Francione era, and they were having to buy their own meals, their own muscle milk, all their own protein powders. The scholarships were only covering about $200 or $300 on top of room and board, right? Like it just wasn't a lot there. Damphousse has come in and he's increased the financial stability of those programs, but he's also, I think, done a great job of like ground floor marketing, getting in front of the students, getting in front of the donors, getting in front of the fans and the coaches and the recruits, and just making Texas State athletics feel big. And so much of this is perception. And if you don't think it's a big deal, then why would anybody else? Alignment, the more I do this job, the more I understand that alignment matters more than maybe anything. And to have a university president, an athletic director, and a football coach on the same play sheet, on the same level, I think is a really big deal. And Texas State's achieved that. And you see that they've gone from Southland to WAC to Sun Belt and now the Pac-12 because of it.
What was shocking in that article column you wrote is that the fall enrollment in 2024 was 40,487, and that trailed only Texas A&M, Texas, Houston, and North Texas. That shocked me. It kind of happened out of nowhere. Does it feel like it, or how much is the rise of the football team and GJ Kinney correlated to the rise in the enrollment, you think, at Texas State?
I think it helps for sure. TCU talked about this after their run to the college football playoff. I think SMU is probably going to report a record number of applications after going to the college football playoffs and being in the ACC. Like, you get it, Carter. You went to a big school with a big football program. Like, that's a big part of your student life. Like, going to those games on Saturday and watching and cheering on your team and getting into a frat or into a student organization that's into the sports. The tailgating has always been good at Texas State, but it was getting those fans to get inside the building. I think Texas State, the research institution part, I think has been a big deal of it as well. It's a much better university reputation-wise than it was 20 years ago when I was applying for schools. And so I think they're just shedding their skin and they're becoming kind of a big boy, new type of university that Southwest Texas never was. And that was kind of the first part of the branding, was like, let's remove the Southwest part and not make it as a regional thing within the state of Texas. Like, we are Texas State. Like, we are a bigger brand than that. Now they're able to go outside those borders as a Pac-12. I think it all just kind of gets on top of each other, builds on top of each other. And they're hitting on all cylinders right now, and you see the results of it.
Do you have any remaining questions about the move to the Pac-12 in terms of like television revenue? Are they getting full, partial share? Just closing, like not picking nits, but picking up loose ends. Like, any other questions you have that we didn't get answered in the Damphousse and Coryell interview?
Yeah, I think the full share, when that starts, is going to be a big one that I'm sure, the media it'll get leaked at some point. Somebody will say something, and I don't blame, Don and Kelly for keeping that in house and letting others kind of speculate on that. I guess my brain, I get so sick of the conference realignment and the money part and the boardroom part and stuff. Like, I care about the sports, specifically the football. And so I guess my big question is, how in 1 year do you go about building a team that can compete at that level? Texas State is having unprecedented success, but they still haven't played for a Sun Belt championship, much less won one. They're like 0-11 against Louisiana. Like, there's still some monkeys to get off their back there, Texas State, and they've improved. They beat Baylor 2 years ago. But this is still a program that lost to Incarnate Word in 2021, right? Yeah. Like, they've come a long way, but they're going to have to go even further to get into that conference and not be last. We saw what SMU did when they entered. We saw what UTSA did when they entered the American. I think it is very important to put the flag down and to have a proof of concept. And my question for Texas State in terms of on-field product for men's basketball, for football, the two biggest sports that people watch and where the money comes from, will they walk in as a basement level football team, a basement level men's basketball team, or over this next year with this added boost through the transfer portal, through recruiting, how well positioned will they be to compete right away?
And that'll be determined, like you're mentioning, on the field this fall. The last season, the Sun Belt Conference, and both Kelly and Don said, we know we're going to have the target on our back in the Sun Belt this last year. I know SMU, before they went to the ACC, won the AAC championship. And I believe UTSA won the Conference USA championship the year before they got to the AAC, if I'm not mistaken. So do you think Texas State has a chance to win the Sun Belt this fall?
I do. I don't know if they're as loaded as they were last year, and you just look at what they lost to the transfer portal and just the individual talent on that team was better than the individual talent on this team. But that's true across the board at every G5 program. Like, you are losing better players than you're gaining, or at least you're losing more known, experienced, established players that you're gaining, and maybe some names pop up through this class and through this team that replaces an Ishmati and a Ben Bell and a Terry Webb and all those guys, Alex Harkey, who's now at Oregon. They're losing a lot of talent. But if they can figure out the quarterback position, if they, and I trust GJ Kinney to kind of do that, if they can figure out the quarterback position and the defense stays, a pretty solid defense, I think they have as good of a chance as anybody in the Sun Belt, because everybody's in the same boat. Like, you're not as talented as you were 2 or 3 years ago. And so you can go win even if you're not as talented. I think Texas State has got to be up there with the top 2 or 3 teams, especially in the West, to go win that division. And then anything can happen in the championship game.
Do we have a read on who the starting quarterback is going to be for Texas State?
They brought in Luster from SMU after spring, and we saw that when they did that with kind of, Hornsby and TJ Finley a couple years ago in Kenny's first spot. I still think it's Brad Jackson. I think Brad Jackson has the inside track. He can run the football. He's been there in the system. He didn't leave. I know GJ Kinney is a big fan of him and recruited him in order to be the quarterback. And I think there's an advantage to be had if you can have somebody like Jackson be the quarterback and know that he's going to be your starting quarterback for the first year in the Pac-12 as well, right? And you can build something this year that carries on to next year. So I think that's important, but they're going to go through the summer. They're going to go through the fall. I like the way Kinney does it. I think it sometimes causes a little bit of drama, like on social media. You just, I think it's kind of a new school way of doing it, to sign 5 or 6 different quarterbacks and just let them compete and figure it out. But that's the NFL in him. Like, that's what he did as an NFL quarterback. I think he sees that as the best route forward. But if I had to put money on it on June 30th when we're recording this, I would imagine Brad Jackson takes the first snap. But maybe Keldrick Luster hits the ground running and just so good in fall camp that you can't not put him on the field. I don't know.
So I know you're a big fan of GJ Kinney, how he runs his team. I think he's viewed at nationally as one of the top rising young coaches in the sport. And I know there's been talk of him going to another job in a couple of years or a year or two, and not necessarily, of course, that he's been interviewing for a lot of jobs, but there's been speculation he gets a big contract boost and things of that nature. Do you think this move of the Pac-12 would keep GJ Kinney at Texas State for longer than maybe in the Sun Belt?
I think it eliminates the idea that he would leave for another G5 job, right? Like, I think it makes it to where the only way you're losing a Kinney is to a Baylor or an SMU or a TCU. And, Boise State would probably lose their head coach to those jobs. Oregon State would lose their head coach to those jobs, right? Like, those are just bigger jobs that pay more money. I do know that Kinney gets annoyed with all this idea of that he's always leaving. I think he's flattered by it, and he enjoys being in those conversations, and it's better than not being in the conversations, I suppose. But he's done everything at Texas State that illustrates he wants to be there for a decent amount of time. I think he sees Jeff Traylor, who's one of his mentors at UTSA, and he's following that model. Like, he's recruited more high school than Spavital ever did. He's laid a real foundation behind the scenes. I think he's building a roster and a coaching staff in his image. He looks at it as a job he can be at for 5-10 years, and he's coaching to be there for 5 or 10 years. Now, it's a career like anyone else, right? Like, something could come up to us tomorrow, and maybe we're leaving Dave Campbell's. Like, we're all in that same boat. But I do think this allows Texas State to be in the upper tier of G5 football, to where they don't have to worry about losing their head coach to another bigger job in the G5.
Yeah, I remember after the second First Responders Bowl, that's a second First Responders Bowl win, he had a quote about, I'm trying to be like Jim Wacker. I'm trying to have a statue out here at Texas State. And so that was definitely a bar that he was dropping. But it speaks to the fact that he wants to be here for the long term. And like you're talking about, yes, it's flattering to be in those conversations for jobs, but he's a loyal guy. He wants to be there. Any like other big questions about Texas State as a football team other than that quarterback position? They've got the conference figured out now. I'm sure there's still plenty of other questions with this roster, but like what is your biggest one for them right now?
Probably defensive line.
Or who the punter is going to be? Do they have a punter yet, or a kicker?
Or a kicker? They lost Mason Shipley after spring. I know that was a big deal. We'll see what would happen. Maybe they just go for 2 and go for 4th down all the time. For me, it's the defensive line. You know, you look at what they lost, and it's like a guy to Virginia Tech, a guy to Indiana, a guy to SMU, a guy to Colorado. Like they lost 4 or 5 legit Power 4 players to the portal. They lost Stephen Parker to graduation. I know they didn't have Ben Bell for all of last year, but that's just a lot for a G5 program to replace. I think they can do it. I think Kenny's main strength as a football coach, in my mind, is his evaluation. I think that he could be an NFL GM, right? If he didn't want to be a coach. Like, I think he is one of the premier talent evaluators that I know, that I cover on a regular basis. And other coaches say that. I'm not smart enough to know that. That's just me taking what other coaches around the state tell me about Kenny. I think we saw that in his first year there when he walked in with like 50 new players and won 8 games for the first time in program history.
And Ishmati and Joey Hobart.
Right. Those were not named Ben Bell. Those were not name brand guys. What he did with TJ Finley, right? Like those were not name brand guys when he got there, and he turned them into name brand guys, and now they're cashing in through the transfer portal. So there could be another line of those players that we just haven't seen yet. But if I had to name questions about Texas State going into the season on the field, it would be quarterback, it'd be defensive line, and I guess it would be who's calling plays offensively, right? Because Mac Leftwich goes to Texas Tech. They hire in-house. When I asked Kenny who was going to call plays this spring, he said that was yet to be determined. And so maybe he's calling plays this year and has a bigger hand in that. And he's always had a hand in what goes offensively, but maybe he's down play caller this year. And what does that do? I know some head coaches enjoy that. Some head coaches say, that is a lot for them and they had to give that up. So I think those are just kind of the main questions for Texas State. But again, I think if we went through the Sun Belt, we'd have questions at almost every single program. Like there's just not continuity anymore. So they're swimming in the same river as everybody else.
Who are your players that you're most excited to watch on Texas State?
Defensively, Coryell Alexander at defensive end's probably the first name that pops up. Just a really good edge rusher who played a lot with Ben Bell kind of sitting out those last 8 games so he could maintain his eligibility. They've had really good edge rushers. Like that's been one of the staples of the Texas State defense the last couple of years is being able to create pressure, create havoc off the edge. And Alexander is one of the only names that Dexter McCoyle would like individually like mention when I was there for the spring, because I think the coaching staff is still getting used to who's going to be there and who's not. I guess offensively, it's going to start with Lincoln Perry for me, right? Like they've been a really good running team. I think the passing and the points and just kind of the overall offense gets a lot of pub in Texas State, but they led the state in rushing last year. They were our best running team in the state last year. They lose Ishmati, but Lincoln was the MVP of that bowl game that you mentioned. He had led the team in rushing a couple years previous before he had got injured. I think that they're going to run the ball, especially if Brad Jackson is the quarterback. Like his legs are going to be a reason why. I think they're going to be more of a running football team this year, and I'd imagine Pari has a big say in that.
Well, that's all the questions I had for the preview. I think we're about ready to get to Kelly and Don. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, so that'll do it for our Texas State recap on the Pac-12 move and then preview of their football team this upcoming year. We're going to now kick it over to ourselves, talking with Texas State President Kelly Damphousse and Texas State Athletic Director Don Coryell. All right, we now welcome on 2 very special guests to the Dave Campbell's College Football Podcast. It is Texas State President Kelly Damphousse and Texas State Athletic Director Don Coryell. Guys, big news breaking out of your camp last week about joining the Pac-12 conference starting in July 2026. I want to start with you, Kelly, because when you were hired in 2022, there were 6 bullet points for prospective hires. And I read this in Craven's story about Texas State joining the Pac-12 on texasfootball.com. And you basically said how the 6th bullet point was for the president to understand the importance of athletics. That was a prerequisite for getting hired at Texas State. And obviously, the importance of athletics, a lot of that comes with football. So before we talk about the Pac-12 and that conference and why y'all have moved there, what were the most pressing steps that you guys had to take in the early years to make Texas State even viable for Pac-12 entry?
Well, thanks for having us on first off, and we're really happy about talking about what's going on at Texas State. I'm going to go back to those bullet points because the very first bullet point was they were looking for someone who could raise the national profile of the university, and I had told the search committee and anyone who would listen that, man, if we can fix the last bullet point, which was athletics, specifically football, that would really have an impact on the national profile. There were other things that were important too, becoming an R1 institution, having great student success, diversifying revenue, and so on. But I thought those two things were really tied. And I had a lot of experience in that area. I was a faculty athletics rep at University of Oklahoma for 5 years. And as the rep, I got to sit in on the senior staff member meetings with Joe Castiglione, who's widely known as one of the best athletic directors in the country. So he became my athletics mentor. I got to work with David Bourne, who is my president, been president at OU for more than 20 years, and who led the Big 12 through their realignment issues as well, when they were inviting schools to join and trying to keep themselves in their status. And then I was a member of the Sun Belt board of directors. I was a president of the board for a while. During realignment, I was the president of the Sun Belt board. I'm on the NCAA board of directors. I was on the board of governors. And so I had a lot of experience in athletics. And one of the things I know to be true is that college presidents love to say the front porch of the university is athletics. They love to say it. And if I had $1 for every time I heard someone say that, I wouldn't have to be raising money for the South End Zone and for scholarships and so on, because I have a lot of money. But presidents don't always invest that way. They say you can tell what your priorities are by where you spend your money. And college athletics sometimes is left on their own. And I don't think you should do that. And so when I came here, we had a lot of priorities. We wanted to become an R1 institution. We wanted to focus on student success. We needed to raise the pay of our staff and our faculty. We needed to recruit more faculty and staff to come here. We need to get our enrollment up. So we invested a lot in that my first 3 years here. But we also said we want to invest in athletics as well. And so we started with football. And I'm going to let Don tell that story, but we knew that football is king in Texas, but it's also king in college sports as far as finances go. And so Don and I talked and said, what do you need to turn this thing around? And he said, I need X, Y, and Z. And I said, well, let's just make that happen. So Don, I'll let you tell that story.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, just being really intentional in how we're approaching football and really listening, right? I mean, we hired GJ Kenny because we knew he could get the job done. So GJ, you've got to tell us now, what do you need to be successful? And so we've been able to work with him over the past few years on a lot of different needs, right? Whether it's retention of coaches, whether it's help in the NIL space, whether it's facility related. I really trust what he tells me is going to make a difference in our program. In the communication between us, I mean, you guys don't know this. There's probably not a day that goes by that myself and GJ are talking or texting, or myself and Kelly and GJ aren't talking or texting. And I'll tell you what, man, it makes a big difference when university presidents at every recruiting meeting, visiting with every recruit, you get to hear firsthand what these recruits want, what they're looking for. And this happens all the time. Kelly and I'll follow up after a visit with recruits. Hey, they were asking about this. They were asking about that. What are you guys doing in this space? And if it's an area that we're lacking, he's quick to try to find ways to help. So the communication is really important, but also trust in GJ and what he does. And we picked a guy who, in my opinion, is a high-level evaluator of talent. I think he can really identify players that are going to fit well in the system and are going to produce. And so we've got all the confidence in the world. We just need to make sure we continue to support them, and we'll continue to get better.
Don, you've been at Texas State since I think 2004. They were Southland Conference members when you
Yeah.
got there. Kind of where does this rank? Where's the Pac-12 invitation and
Oh,
acceptance kind of rank in terms of big days so far in your career there?
this may be the biggest, right? I just think this could be a launch pad to take Texas State University, Texas State athletics to places that we've never been before. So for me, this is probably number one just because of the potential. And we've been talking about potential here for a long time. I think we're starting to realize some of that. But I mean, we're going into a league that's going to be a top five conference in the country, right? It's going to be top five in football. It's going to be top five in men's basketball. We're going to get in on the ground floor as a foundational member. That is super exciting for us. But just to be able to compete at this level, it's everybody. It's what everybody wants to do in college athletics, right? You don't get into sports to not compete against the best, to play against the best. Our coaches are excited about it. Our student athletes are thrilled about it. Our recruiting is going to elevate. There's just so many benefits to this. I've got to rank it right at the top.
So for Texas State fans, the question I'm about to ask is very no duh, but you're going to the Sun Belt. I mean, going to the Pac-12 conference, leaving the Sun Belt. Of course, y'all love your time in the Sun Belt and all the people and teams, programs that are there. But why now for the Pac-12? Why was this the good time for y'all to make this move?
Well, I'll start and let Don
Yeah.
put the meat on the bones. But I want to go back to what you said about the Sun Belt first. I'm the third longest serving president in the Sun Belt. Haven't been there for 9 years now. I was there during realignment. I brought in those four schools, kept the schools that we wanted to keep that were, threats to leave. I love what we created there. And so this is not leaving because we're unhappy where we are, but it's an opportunity to be part of something really exciting. It raises our profile nationally because everyone's talking about the Pac-12. Our media mentions on social media and traditional media just been through the roof. 10 billion social media reaches in the past 9 months, and 5 billion in the past 30 days. And that's on social media. Traditional media for the past 9 months, that's TV, radio, newsprint, magazine, so on, has been about 5 billion is the potential reach there. So, being a part of that conversation aligns with this expectation of us raising our national profile. And then, as Don said, the competition comparisons and the schools that will be coming here to compete is something for our fans, for our students, for our community. We're proud members of the city of San Marcos, and so we think that this is a huge opportunity for us to showcase what's happening here in what was once a sleepy little village between Austin and San Antonio, which is now becoming one of the fastest growing cities in the country. And so, Don, I'll let you jump in and talk about from electric.
You said a lot of it right. I mean, I will tell you this. I was a student athlete in the Sun Belt, played basketball in it. I have so much respect for that league. And you've heard us over the past several years talk about what a great league it is. It has completely changed its perception on a national level. And we're going to be in a dogfight for this next year in it. We're going to have targets on our back. We understand that people are going to want to beat us. It's going to be a challenging year for us. But yeah, to Kelly's point, I think this is the best possible outcome for us in terms of position ourselves for future years ahead, right? Kelly's touched on the brand. It's super important. But the competition, right? I mean, I think this is the best path for us to the college football playoffs. I've already talked about how strong I think this league's going to be in football and in men's basketball and other sports as well. You look at what the institutions that will be joining across the board. They're so successful in so many sports, and so I just think it's going to give us an opportunity to go to places that we've never been before. I mean, who doesn't want to go play football at Boise on the blue turf? Who doesn't want to play Gonzaga, San Diego State in basketball, Oregon State in baseball? I could go on, right? There's just so many positives to the institutions that we're going to be joining.
I'm excited for my national football coverage brethren to learn how to say San Marcos correctly. You hear it said it wrong too often. I think that's going to become a better part of the lexicon. Could y'all just kind of walk us through the behind the scenes of how something like this works? From the outside, we just kind of see the news and the leaks and the rumors. But what is the process like? When does it start? Kind of when did it become a reality for you guys?
Well, Don and I had our first conversation probably in July of 2024, when the PAC said, we're gonna stick with this. And then before too long, they invite some Mountain West schools. Well, then that starts a domino effect, right? So the domino effect is that Mountain West now has openings. And so we're thinking, do we have a play there? And then Utah State joins and Gonzaga joins and say, well, what are the chances of the PAC being an opportunity? And we felt like we should, and there are other opportunities as well, right, that are happening or potentially could happen. And so, the process is you don't apply to go to conferences, and they don't blindly invite people. You have a conversation with people. So I started calling presidents around the country. I knew some of them I didn't know. I had to introduce myself to them and say, let me give you a few minutes to explain to you who Texas State is, and calling conference commissioners, talking to them as well. Again, talking about who we are. One of our problems, I think we're too well kept of a secret. And I think there's a lot of great things going on at the university as a whole, but also in athletics. It certainly helped that we did so well in the Bubas Cup, winning the Bubas Cup 2 years in a row in 3 of the past 4 years and 4 of the past 7 years. It shows that we're competing very well. If you know athletics, you know that Sun Belt is a very strong conference in all sports. And so the fact that we did well there helped tell the story. But the people who make the decisions are not athletics directors and coaches and commissioners. It's the presidents, and that's who you have to create relationships with. And athletics is important to them, but what's almost more important for some of them is the academics. What does the university look like? Is it growing? What does the budget look like? Are you in a budget crisis right now? Is your enrollment growing? What does your research profile look like? And the fact that I was able to point to all these positive signs, 60,000 high school seniors applied to come to Texas State for this fall semester in high school. It's Texas high school seniors apply. That's a lot. All right, we'll have another freshman class, a record-sized freshman class again this year. Record enrollment last fall. We'll have record enrollment again this fall. Becoming an R1 institution by 2027. Getting a Phi Beta Kappa honors chapter on our campus. All these things that indicate success in academics and in research played a huge role there. And then Don has to work with the athletics directors because they advise the chancellors and the presidents on their end about athletics. And so Don talked about that.
Yeah, I just think for us, from an athletic standpoint, it was just making sure that our house was in order, right? We particularly with football, we knew how important it was to make sure that we had a successful football program. If we didn't, maybe we're having this conversation. I'm not sure. But and also as importantly, just being able to show the commitment to invest more, to want to do more, to have the ambition to be better. That was also really important in these conversations. And we were able to show that, with the help of Kelly and others. But yeah, just making sure that our house was in order. Kelly talked about the Bubas Cup. I immediately at 11 a.m. this morning met with our staff and coaches and thanked them, because we wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for their accomplishments. Comprehensively, we are really, really good across the board in our athletics department, and that's because of how hard they work. So yeah, man, making sure that we had our house in order was super important.
And
Yeah, I
Don,
think we have some data showing like the RPI or whatever ratings that are out there, all of our sports, and compared to our future colleagues, and we're like in the top half of many of them. There's a couple that we need to work on.
Yeah.
We think we'll compete really well right away. You don't want to go there and fall on your face the first couple of years. We don't think we will.
Yeah, we're very comfortable with how we think we're going to compete based on the measurements and the statistics that we're looking at. We think we're going to do fine, and we're excited about taking a shot at everybody.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will be able to watch those on CBS Sports because of that new TV deal that the Pac-12 signed. I know the original Pac-12, it had some shifting because of the lack of a TV deal, but it really, from the outside looking in, it seemed like, okay, they get this new TV deal, CBS Sports, and then Texas State. It's only a matter of time they get in, and y'all get in now. Don, how important was that TV deal to this whole process?
The exposure is critical, right? I mean, a big part of this for us is the brand enhancement, right? Expanding our reputation nationally. This is going to allow us to do that. So yeah, it's a critical component to what you're doing. And I will say this, I need to say Commissioner Teresa Gold and what her and her staff have been able to do to revive this conference, that was a key part of it. Adding us was a key part of it. And she deserves so much credit. I can't imagine how difficult of a task this was for her for the past few years. We went through it on a really small scale. We were in the WAC for 1 year, and if I remember it correctly, like the day we announced we were joining the WAC, the next day several teams said, "Hey, we're leaving. We're going to the Mountain West." And so we've got a small piece of that where I have some understanding maybe of kind of where she's been, but she did such a tremendous job in lining all this up to make sure that the future of the Pac is bright.
Obviously, finances play a big part of this. Moving into the revenue sharing portion of college athletics, what can you tell fans about full share, half share, how the money's going to work out for Texas State in this deal?
Yeah, we've never reported that from any of the conference affiliations we've been in. It'll all eventually become public, but we're not talking about that right now. Suffice to say that we'll be in better shape than we've ever been financially, and you'll note that the conference press release refers to us as a full member, and so that's really important to us. I just think that to us, it wasn't just about the money. It was about the other stuff that came with that. And a large part of that was just experience for our students who are here, our fans, filling up stadiums, filling up arenas. Those kind of things were almost more important than what the conference distribution will be. That suffice to say, though, we're very pleased with where we are financially.
And then for the Pac-12 in general and the new teams y'all be playing, like I know you're saying goodbye to a lot of rivals in the Sun Belt, but who are some of the teams in the Pac-12 or just that you think students and student athletes are getting very excited about, like starting up new rivalries over there?
I think all of them. I don't think there's one that our student athletes and fans won't be excited to see. There's so many great opportunities. I touched on a couple of them, but I think this is going to make a tremendous difference in our fan support. The external dollars that we're going to be able to generate through tickets sold and donations to the program and assistance with capital projects and all those things. And I think that's because everyone's going to be genuinely excited about what we're doing. We got a massive alumni base, like 230,000 alumni in the state of Texas. We think this is going to get a lot of them involved. We think that our students are going to be thrilled with this move. And so, yeah, there's a lot of opportunities moving forward, and I think all of these teams bring a certain amount of recognition in history that is so respected across the country that our fans are going to appreciate that.
Now, you guys have mentioned GJ Kinney and just how important he's been for the brand and just football being that front porch. What was his reaction when he first heard this news and knew that it was official and it was going down?
He's fired up, man. That dude's a competitor. I mean, he's ready to go. I mean, one thing I love about GJ Kinney is when we talk about like football scheduling, it is never, I don't want to play this person. I don't want to see them. He is ready to go. He's excited about it. We've even seen just kind of recently in some of our commits that we think this is going to make a big difference. We've got a few commits over the past week or so, 2 weeks that, maybe we wouldn't necessarily have gotten in the past just based on some Pac-12 speculation. And so, yeah, man, that guy's ready to get out there and play.
And then you mentioned it before earlier, but y'all in the last year of the Sun Belt will have a bit of the target on your back this year. But GJ is a competitor. We know that about him. Like, what are your kind of expectations? What are you excited for about the upcoming 2025 season?
excited for a lot, right? I mean, anytime you get a chance to go out there and compete, you're excited, but we want to defend the Bubas Cup, right? We want to leave on a high note. We want to show well. But yeah, we're going to have a target on our back, and the Sun Belt is a very tough league. We better come ready to play every weekend, or we're going to get our butts kicked.
I've been going to Texas State games for a long time. My uncle went there in the '80s. My mom went there. I remember being at that Incarnate Word game a few years ago. And from a fan's perspective, it always felt like Texas State always won the tailgates, right? And it was a matter of convincing them to come into the stadium and to be a part of the football program. How have y'all gone about building that, and how much do you think the atmospheres over the last couple of years have helped kind of build this bridge to a new conference?
Well, I'll say a little bit.
Okay.
Donnie can provide the context.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was like before I got here, but I had heard that story, and our tailgates were pretty phenomenal. And you know, I think that when Don and I had the conversation, like, how do we get students in the game? It wasn't the older fans, the alumni who stayed in tailgate. It was the students, and so Don and I actually went to every student organization that would allow us to come and talk about. You got 6 Saturdays to make memories that last a lifetime, but those memories would be enhanced not just in the tailgate section, but in the stands as well. And then we've done everything we could to get them in the stands, get them excited. At basketball games, we started this new tradition, a half-court shot for free tuition. And boy, and someone will win, because the last game, if no one's made it yet, someone will shoot until they get free tuition. So our last game, our student section was just packed with people, and 3 years in a row now, someone's got free tuition for shooting a half-court shot at men's and women's basketball. Football, we got people out of the tailgate a little bit in the first year, but the second and third year did much better. Don, I think we had 9,000 students at one of our games.
Yeah.
And you could see it. The next goal is get them there earlier, because we'll kick off, and then Don and I will be in the field, and we can see a steady stream of people coming in. And we got to get them excited about coming there for the pregame atmosphere, because, we got the Strutters, we got the band, we got incredible pregame, historic pregame things to do. And students and fans who get there late are missing a lot. And by the way, we're trying to encourage our alumni and non-student fans to get there early now, which will enhance the tailgate experience, because this is not, Texas State football of 2021. You got to get there early. If you show up 15 minutes before the game, you're going to miss the first quarter, because the lines are long, the parking's full, and so on. You got to get there early and get in your seat and be ready to go at the beginning. And so part of that is messaging, and got to have something for them to see. A large part of it is winning. If you're not winning, it's going to hard to get. You can get them there. It's hard to get them back. Creating some excitement on the field. We've done some things with game day, for example, where Don will remember this. We're on the field in July last year, and we looked at the student section, and it was like 3 p.m, and we said those students are going to roast in September if we have a 3 o'clock game. And we can, with ESPN Plus, we get to set some of our times. And so Don said, what if we move the game to 7 o'clock? And a lot of our older fans don't like the late games, but they also don't like that students don't show up. And so we turned those into night games, and it's still hot, don't get me wrong, but you're not sitting in that roasting sun with the sun in your eyes at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So just little things like that. The Cats Garden that Don started before I got there, the South End Zone, fun zone for the kids and so on. There's so much we're doing, so much more we will do to get them to come to the game, that I think the potential is unlimited. Now we're going to run out of seats in the stadium. I'm convinced of that. We're going to have to.
And I'll just add quickly, because he hit a lot of it. For just him to be able to talk about all of the things that we're doing, I think really tells you how connected, Kelly is to our athletics department. And that's one of the most important pieces, in my opinion, to the increase in our student interest. It's not just athletics driving everything now. We get so much support from our student success department. They put on a great event where we bring all 9,000 plus freshmen to the football stadium in late August to talk about our traditions. And this is what we want you to do at our games. And it's really translated into increased attendance. We averaged over 6,000 students a game. I'd put that up against a lot of schools in the country. The atmosphere is awesome. If you look at all the videos that are out on social media when it's showing our game environments, that's helping with our recruiting. And to your initial question, how important is that? I mean, it is really high up there when you're talking about recruiting. We're recruiting kids from the state of Texas, right? They're playing high school games in front of 25,000 people. You better not bring them into a football stadium that has 15,000 people, or they're not going there. And so yeah, it's extremely important that our fans show up and our students continue to come out.
And then lastly,
Craven, I got a question to ask, but I got to say real quick. I wish when I was in college that my university president had told me you got 6 Saturdays for the rest of your lives. That would have fired me to go tailgating.
Yeah.
Before we let you out of here, because I know you are busy doing a lot of these rounds, Kelly, you mentioned kind of selling out the stadium and maybe having to add more seats. What do you guys think the ceiling is for Texas State athletics now that you're in the Pac-12?
Yep. Sorry, Kelly. Yes, you. Sorry.
The ceiling got a lot higher. I think we'll get a lot more attention nationally. I think, and you're seeing that already. I think we have the potential for having games that our fans think. I thought every home game was important, but some of our fans may not have felt that if they didn't recognize the schools that were coming here. And but now I think there'll be much greater recognition of that. And again, success breeds success. And as football does better, as baseball, starts hosting regionals and going to Omaha regularly, and softball going to Oklahoma City, and as all those things start to get together, when's the last time we've been to a tournament in men's and women's basketball? When you start having that kind of success and that kind of home environment where great schools are coming in, think about Gonzaga coming and playing basketball here. Just to name one school, Boise State coming here. I'm hearing a lot of our fans saying, I can't wait to go to Idaho to watch a game, or go to San Diego to watch a game, or Fresno or Washington or Oregon. I mean, everything just builds on itself. And then you start thinking, when you filled your stadium up every day for every game, well, what can we do to expand more suites? Well, our suites are sold out already. We got to add more suites, I think, to, somewhere in that stadium, because I think there's huge demand for that already. But then at some point, it's not just suites; it's also seats. And so I think there's huge opportunity for expansion, especially in the football stadium. But I just, maybe I'm too much of an optimist, but I just think that there's so much potential here, which is why this is, as Don said earlier, one of the biggest things that's ever happened to Texas State athletics.
Yeah, and I'll just add, our goal is the college football playoffs. That's what we want to participate in. We thought maybe we would have a chance last year. We played some really tight games. I don't think we lost a game by more than 10 points last year. So yeah, we think the move to the Pac-12 will give us the best path to do that.
Well, Kelly and Don, we appreciate y'all so much for clearing some time in your schedule to talk about the new Pac-12 move. For senior college writer Mike Craven, I am Carter Yates. This was a conversation with Texas State President Kelly Damphousse and Athletic Director Don Coryell. And let's hear it for the Bobcats. One last season in the Sun Belt Conference before they go to the Pac-12 in 2026.
Love Cats.
Thank you both. Appreciate the coverage.
Thanks, guys. Congrats.